The early game was pretty boring. I just cruised through it using cowboys, and there's nothing much else to say. So yeah. Round about like somewhere in wave 8, I got all of my cowboys to level 2, and I decided to go and farm a little bit while I still can, as the mid to late game there, not very forgiving if you ask me. Most of you already know that farm got reworked. You know, that's old news. That's actually happened like a month, I'd say like a few months ago, right? But unfortunately, I am very lazy, and I didn't care to learn what was the best way to farm. So I just went with how I would have farmed if farm didn't get reworked, which might not be the great way to farm. And yeah. On the topic of farms, I would make an immense mistake, and you're about to find out what it is. Right around here. Did you catch it? If not, I'll give you a few seconds to see if you can find it. It's a level 4 farm. Now, you see, from the time that I was playing TDS a lot and was actually studying the game, I was told by many people that level 4 farms are not worth it under any circumstance, right? Unless you can get the level like maxed out on the farm, you should just not go for level 4s. That's what I was taught when I was playing TDS. Now, you might be wondering, hey Dumpkin, why, like, how does this lose you the game? It loses me the game because I was so distraught about getting the level 4 farm that I just started leaking. As I was leaking, my mind immediately went on to hackers, because hackers could attack multiple enemies at once with decent damage. But then I was crushed under the foot of reality. Hackers don't do damage at level 0 anymore. They only get the ability to do damage like on a certain level. But I couldn't get that said certain level, so I leaked and I died. I decided to try again. Why? Because I felt like I had a decent loadout. I had early game, sub DPS, DPS, and support, which are basically all the things that you need, depending on how good your DPS and sub DPS are. Unfortunately, the other game was pretty boring. But fortunately, the other game was pretty boring. This goes both unfortunately and fortunately, because I can focus on other things like watching a video while I'm playing TDS, because it's just that easy. Like, anyone can do Fallen early game, it doesn't matter who you are. This time at wave 11, I didn't greed as much and got down a bunch of golden soldiers, which was way more than enough to defend all of the enemies for this wave, which allowed me to greed a little bit more. Around here, on wave 16 is where I get hacker, or so you thought. Haha, you impudent fool, you futile weakling, you really thought I was gonna get hacker this early on? Hell no, man. But, instead of getting the hacker, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go farm and get a bunch of money. Somewhere near wave 20, I placed down all of my engineers at once, and I started to upgrade them from level 0 to level 2, because level 0 can't see anything, like, at all. Like, the range is absolutely abysmal. Wave 25. This wave introduces the Fallen Jester, a support class enemy that will buff enemies at a very high degree, with one of its buffs being Blessing, which gives it a 100% defense. This wave forces you to have insane single target DPS, or force all of your damage onto the Fallen Jester before it can buff any of the Fallen Giants by that much. My choice here was to just drill through everything using a raw DPS, in which it worked, because 6 engineers is pretty OP if you ask me. And now, it was time for the wave that I was anticipating for. This is the ultimate skill check that is not the final boss, in my opinion, and is wave 28. Now, wave 25 was pretty hard, alright? It would be wrong to assume that anyone can pass through with flying colors, but this one Oh, wave 28. This is the ultimate wave. Even though it is only barely after wave 25, it is still significantly harder. Anyone with eyes might have looked at that and said, wow, that seems really easy for your lineup. And I say, yes, you would be correct, but if it wasn't for the turns and twists on U-turn, I would not have been able to guarantee a win that easily. I mean, just look at how much pathway. Like, you can look at my middle engineer and they can cover the entire map. What about on maps like, I don't know, Dusty Bridge, you know? I have done Fallen on Dusty Bridge, right? And I have like 5 level 4 pursuits, and I couldn't even, and I lost to the Fallen Rushes on wave 28. And that is why I absolutely am horrified of that wave. Very fortunate for editing Dumpkin here. Because of all that yapping, it's already onto the Fallen Shield, another boss that I needed to cover. I wouldn't give it that much of a dramatic entering like wave 25 and wave 28 because it's not that hard, right? It's pretty easy to clear, I'd say. I won't give it a starting sequence, but I will give it some music. Around here, I sell one of my engineers to get down a hacker because I need money, and hackers, I feel like they don't have that much of a range. But unfortunately, I accidentally get top path hacker, right? So I had to sell it and lose a bunch of money, which is very bad in my opinion. Because who likes throwing money down the drain, bro? Right around here, we encountered the Fallen Angel. Yeah, there's nothing much to say. It was just like beating a child with a stick and stealing his candy, bro. There's nothing much to say about the Fallen Angel, other than it was an extremely underwhelming fight. And now, for an actual fight, welcome in the Fallen Honor Guard. The Fallen Honor Guard is unique in that it has a purple trail, or puddle if you would call it, that follows him everywhere, that buffs the enemies in some way. It also, the timer for wave 35 and 36 are extremely short. It is hoping to overwhelm you with the enemies, in which I do get overwhelmed. This sequence of waves completely blows the Fallen Rushers out of the water. It is like comparing a 1-year-old to a 10-year-old in terms of combat ability. Why would you be comparing them exactly? I'm not entirely sure. But even though the Fallen Rushers were an extremely hard wave, the Fallen Honor Guard is an extremely hard sequence of waves, and is usually the part where some people die. These sequence of waves are truly butt clenching, sweat dripping. This will leave you on the edge of your seat, microing for your life. And this is all on U-turn. I mean, on any other map, this is extremely hard for anyone that is not as experienced. This sequence is so hard, in fact, I'd actually put it on par with the Fallen Kings wave 40. Very, very unfortunately, around the middle, the Fallen Honor Guard gets protected by a bunch of Fallen heroes. They meat shield for the Fallen Honor Guard, allowing him to move further into the path and buffing even more enemies as he goes. Unfortunately, around here, I do not have that much flying detection. Well, at least not enough to kill the Fallen Angels. I keep getting them mixed up, bro. The Fallen Angels quickly enough, but I do in fact kill them. Just barely, though. I am nanoseconds away from losing, if I were to say so myself. While all of my towers are dealing with them, a fallen tank is coming out from behind, rushing past and blitzing through all the fallen heroes, tanking all the hits for them, allowing them to get further whilst also getting extremely far himself. But unfortunately, my engineers have great range and kills them. As we kill the fallen guardian, the fallen shield just gets melted like plastic in the middle of a hot summer day in Arizona. Every single bit I've done up to this point has all led to this specific wave. Wave 40. Out from the depths of the undead, the fallen king emerged. Holy crap, I'm so good at that now, I just made it up. I frantically tried to put down all of my golden soldiers, because the more the merrier, and there's a lot more DPS. And plus I don't think my engineers alone will be able to handle the fallen king. It was at this point I realized, wait, my hackers, they can create holograms. How did I not realize this? It's one of the main gimmicks of Hacker. As I put down my holograms, all of my concurrent towers started focusing all of their attack power onto the Fallen King. And that, my friends, is how I won with the greediest loadout.